What's up, everybody? We are here at Santa Clara University for part 2 of a 3-part series on placemaking in Santa Clara. Last week, I believe on Tuesday, was the first presentation of the 3-part series. It was a presentation by Don Whedon, who used to be a principal planner for the County of Santa Clara, and I live streamed that from Santa Clara City Hall, Council Chambers. It was a really nice presentation. And tonight, we're here at Santa Clara University at the Locatelli Center. Locatelli, Locatelli. So if you want to come here in person, which I strongly encourage you to do, when you drive in to the main campus entrance and the check-in, check-in with the security guy, that he'll give you a parking permit and he'll tell you where to go. But anyways, we're here at Locatelli Center for the second part of the 3-part series, and this presentation tonight is going to be done by the head of Project for Public Spaces, and the title of the session is called Creating the City of the Future, and it's going to be really neat. I think I haven't seen it in the presentation, but just kind of building off of what was done last week, which was pretty cool. Tonight is going to be a continuation of that, and a lot of good things have been said about Project for Public Spaces and really kind of their mantra of deep community engagement to create public spaces that are desirable by the community. So I'm pretty excited about that. I hope they live up to the hype. I've never worked with them or met them or even seen them present before, but certainly those who have worked with them have nothing but good things to say. Anyways, I'm going to move the camera around here to kind of show you what's going on. There's quite a few people here for a Friday evening. I wasn't sure whether or not there would be more people or less people because it's a Friday evening, but apparently there's a whole lot more people. So, and it's been publicized quite extensively. I think so. I'll walk around here and kind of show you guys the lay of the land. The city has their entire crew here. What's up, guys? They're doing live streaming, so that's why they got all like the equipment and the gear. It's really cool. So they got like a 3 HD cameras set up, one that's pointing at the audience, and it looks like one of these will be pointing at the presentation and the other one will be pointing at the speaker. So it's a pretty good setup. Hey, how you doing? It's a pretty good setup what's going on here. And see, if you're watching on the live stream, you can't enjoy any of these goodies, which is you got some hot water, decaf, 2% milk. So come here in person. And there's also some real goodies here, which I may help myself to. Cool, but this is really what's going on here, and I'm hoping that more people come. I think it's pretty cool to see all the people that are already here, and there's certainly more empty chairs. So, hey everybody who's watching, thanks for your comments. As always, if you guys want to write comments in real time, I hope there's some opportunity for Q&A at the end. And I would be more than happy to ask questions on your behalf. So don't hesitate to write your questions in the comments here, and I'll be more than happy to ask them on your behalf. So that's what's going on. Looks like it's a real good crowd. It was supposed to start at 6. It's about 6:10, and I know they were kind of still setting up some of the things, the presentation, the projector or whatever you call it, and the presentation setup. They were just testing a few mics before I went live. But it looks like all the hustle and bustle of kind of equipment setup is pretty much excuse me, pretty much taken care of. I might have to go get some warm drink, like a tea or something, to suppress this hacking cough that I got. So, hey Lisa, how are you?
my sunshine.
What's up,
Hey,
Kirk?
what are you doing?
Hey, all right.
That's life for you.
This is life. What's up, guys? Talk to people. What's happening tonight? What's happening
What
tonight?
is happening tonight? Well,
Come on, you're the guy who can explain it best.
Fred Kent, he's around here somewhere.
Let's do it this way so that you can see yourself. There you go.
Hi. Fred Kent is going to share his wisdoms from his company, Project for Public Space.
Well, if you guys don't know who this guy is, this is not Fred Kent.
I'm not Fred.
This is not Fred Kent. This is Kirk. Kirk is one of the major driving forces behind getting this thing set up.
Well,
and kind of pushing for.
I encourage you. I'll say I encourage you, but it's all the city, and the city's gone forward to really see what there's to look at how placemaking and creating great places are done. And they have a professional, Fred Kent's the professional, his organization, Project for Public Spaces, out in New York. He's done projects in all states, 3,000 projects in multiple countries, internationally.
Has he done any in California locally that we know about?
He's done in Mountain View. I can't be specific. He did something in Mountain View a little while. He's working on something in Stanford right now. His big project right now is in LA.
So he's not new to the Bay Area. That's good.
No, he's not new.
That's good.
Yeah, and they know Santana Row pretty well.
Because we like to think that we got unique problems, which we kind of do have some unique problems.
Silicon Valley's a little too successful, right? Successful.
That's a good problem to have.
Yeah, it's a good problem
to have.
So, but problems are problems that have to be dealt with. So we're here to.
So we introduced you.
Yeah.
How about we introduce him? This is Paul. What's up, Paul?
Hello there.
How about you introduce yourself to people who are watching?
Paul Ring with Core Companies.
Core Companies. Who's Core Companies?
Yeah, who is Core
I
Companies?
haven't heard of that. No, so Core Companies is the company that's going to develop on the barrack site.
Yeah.
6 acres there.
So there you go. So you got like important people here tonight. You got important people here tonight. I mean, there's really like a lot of people in the audience. It's really cool to have everybody here.
And it's great that Santa Clara University. Yeah, and Santa Clara University is hosting this space at Locatelli Center. It's I've never been to this. It's pretty nice.
I came here once before.
It's cool.
It was one of the council candidate forums.
There's Fred. Go say hi to Fred.
Okay. So here's another important person that let's introduce. Hey, Kirk, come on over and introduce this important person for everybody watching.
I know.
You're live streaming.
We're live streaming this.
Hello. Greetings. I'm from Brooklyn. That's Brooklyn, New York.
Yeah.
And we're here.
Is the accent going to come out?
Yeah.
Or are you going to suppress
well,
that today?
I can do that occasionally, but I'm a little sick right now, so I'm not into the best mood. Hey, Kurt,
come over and help introduce. Let's go. Come on.
Come on, we're on this thing. There we go.
There you go.
We're all together.
So Fred, this is
the man of the hour. He's the man of the hour.
This is the dude. Yeah. This is the guy. 40 years he's been leading this effort. Project for Public Spaces. He's been pioneering how you create great places and great cities. His focus is on people. Focus on how do you make great places for people, not for cars, not for buildings, but for people. And he's here to share that some of those wins and strategies and ideas with the audience in Santa Clara, because Santa Clara has committed to creating great places in its city. So that's my lead into you.
Very exciting. But what we found out a long time ago is the community's the expert. You just have to find a way to get them out into the public spaces and start talking about what they want to do, and then deliver it for them.
So he keeps calling you the expert. You keep calling the community the expert. Right. But I think what it is that we need everybody. You're going to help facilitate the community to tell.
You can't do it without. You can't do it without the community.
Exactly.
I mean, there's no other way.
Isn't that a breath of fresh air to hear that?
and the best part is Santa Clara decided to do this. Santa Clara brought in this type of energy and force, and to have the discussion. That's to me.
Doing placemaking actually is very humbling, because it's really the community that knows, and the only way you can create a place is with the community. So the
community is the one that's going to inhabit that place eventually.
And they're going to use it.
Yeah.
So why would you go anywhere else? And we learned a long time ago that we wrote 11 principles, and the first principle is the community is the expert. And once you're there, you don't.
I hope you're going to share it with us.
Yeah.
Oh, sweet.
Well, no, I'm not, but I should. But
probably. Okay.
But
is there somewhere we can go? Is there somewhere we can go? The website.
Yes.
So there's a plug. Here we go. Let's plug it in.
Go to our website, www.pps.org.
That's easy.
Project for Public Spaces.
PPS.org.
PPS.org.
Not PBS.
PPS.
Peter Sam.
That domain might be available soon, though.
I know. That's terrible. So this is really exciting that we have this interest and focus on how do you create places for people, not places for things, but for people that are here in the community, and putting that power.
And we've been asking for this for a long time.
And Santa Clara has stood up and said, we agree, this is important to us, and they've committed to that. This is the strength of this leadership in Santa Clara. Mayor and council decided unanimously to bring Fred and his team in here, and that to me is really.
Fred, I was asking Kirk, what experiences have you had with going through this process here in the Bay Area? Because the Bay Area is somewhat unique.
We actually helped get started the El Camino Real, the Grand Boulevard, 20 years ago. Got people thinking about that. We've worked in almost all of the communities on the peninsula. We've done a lot of work in downtown in San Francisco, and in Oakland, and then up in Santa Rosa, and some
Is there if there's some if the most successful or the model location?
Hey, we got a guest star right here. Come on, Andrew.
I was going to ask if you're about ready to start.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
We can interrupt.
Another important person right here.
Very
Another
important person.
We're having way too much fun, which is a good thing.
You're like Robert Pattinson.
All right. Well, I'll let you get to it then,
okay.
and then I hope. Is there going to be an opportunity for Q&A during the
for
session?
sure, yeah.
Okay. So if anybody on the live stream has a question that wants me to ask it on their behalf, I'd be more than happy to. That's fun. That's fun. All right, guys. So I'm going to go set up. It looks like they're going to get started. Sorry.
Thank everybody for coming out tonight. This is our second event in our Placemaking in Santa Clara series, and we're starting perfectly after a New York time, or maybe not quite, but working in that direction tonight. And we're very honored to have Fred Kent here tonight to be our speaker. And he is the president for the Project for Public Spaces, which is located in New York City. And I believe in 1972, he started this role. He's done placemaking work all around the globe, a number of projects here in the Bay Area as well. All right, I'll introduce some of our guests that we have here as well. We should recognize that we have our Mayor Lisa Gillmor with us. Our council members, Debbie Davis, Teresa O'Neill, Pat Colstead. That's everyone from the council. And we have Planning Commissioner Jane and Raj Hall is walking.
They're somewhere.
Glad to have all of you here as well. I was also mentioned that Fred, amongst other things, was the chair of Earth Day for New York City on 2 occasions.
Nice.
So he's well known in that community, but we're glad to hear what he has to say to us here in Silicon Valley about places.
Glad to be here. I'm struggling with a cold, so I'm going to try to prevent some coughing. Can you hear me okay? I think that sound is pretty good. It's always been, we've been out here so many times to this part of the world. We actually helped get started something called the Grand Boulevard for El Camino Real. And I can't tell you how many times we've driven up and down that. In fact, we always almost prefer to go on that because there's so much history there. And I'd love to go at about a snail's pace and sort of pick up every town and what happened to each of those towns historically as they evolved from the historic road to what is now a very multi-dimensional road. But there's probably more history there than anywhere else on the West Coast. I don't know, you're nodding and you know better probably than I do, but so there's some fascinating stuff here. But the other thing that goes on, which is, a struggle for me because I live in Brooklyn and New York, and we don't drive a car, and then all of a sudden you come out here and all you see are cars. And I know that's not the future. And so how do we get these places that are going to thrive where people don't have to be driving? And, I get in we're working on Stanford or something, and I got in the car and I'm thinking, well, it's only about 12 miles down to here. And so I put on my iPhone and it's 43 minutes. So anyway, so there's a big challenge here, and I hope we can set this up for that. So we're working all over the world, and we're kind of addicted to traveling. So, but we're addicted to this idea that placemaking is something that everyone wants, and everyone is struggling to find out how to get it. And it's a very different world now, and we need very different ways of thinking about how to make our cities in the future. So this is a fellow, Dr. Close, who's the head of UN Habitat, and we've been working with them for 4 years, developing language for Habitat 3, which is in October, last October. And they actually put language in around, a lot of language around public spaces, but also around places. And the need for community engagement and community ownership of the places they're involved in. So it was very successful and very rewarding. But now the real work begins, is because we've got to figure out, well, what is the city of the future? How do we take a place like Santa Clara or wherever you're from and shape it into a great set of places, community places, gathering places, commercial business places, all of those. And that's difficult. And we're going to go through a number of strategies that we've been using that allow people to get that, move in that direction. But the other thing is that when about 20 years ago, we wrote a book called How to Turn a Place Around. Kathy Madden, right there, wrote it, and we have 11 principles. And the first principle is the community is the expert. And the second one is you're creating a place, not just a design. And the third one is you can't do it alone. And the fourth one, if you know Yogi Berra, he has this statement, if they say it can't be done, it doesn't always work out that way. So, and that's the critical one, because we have set up all of our structures, all of our systems to create outcomes that aren't the outcomes that we want. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today. And so we believe that placemaking, because it is a community process, community ownership process, which I'll talk about in a minute, can do it. It's the only way it can happen. It can't happen with professionals doing top-down, silo-driven outcomes that are more for their profession than for community. So we've worked in a lot of places. So it's a community process. In fact, I think it's almost a sacred community process. It isn't something that some professional can do. It's really something that the community can do and do really well. I've never, ever, ever been disappointed in the vision that a community creates for their future. It's just startlingly effective to watch groups of people come together and talk about what they want around certain places, not around, I want this for the whole city, I want this for this intersection, for this part of this park, for this is this, and they are brilliant. I've never been disappointed. So it's a natural, it's organic process. It localizes, it's economic development in the holistic sense. It is on many levels. It's economic engagement and it's scale to each community, and it creates social and place capital. And the outcomes are phenomenal. We've done a big paper on health and how place contributes significantly to people's health. I was with, yesterday, a man by the name of Kim Cranston, whose father was a U.S. Senator, and he's talking about longevity, and how that can have, how it's going to change the way we live and where we live, fundamentally. But one aspect of longevity is the health, the places that people live in that add to their health and their sense of focus and purpose. So, but I'm going to tell you that everything we're doing now, we need to turn it upside down to get it right side up, to get from inadequate to extraordinary. And that's really difficult. It's really hard. And it's a struggle because we've so embedded ourselves in a process that is not delivering the outcomes that we want. So in the last few weeks, I've always been struggling between conflict and confrontation. And we weren't at this meeting in New York, but some of our staff were. And this fellow, his name is Joe Weston. Does anyone know him? Or, you know? So he he gave a workshop then. And I'm not sure I quite understand so much the differences, but the way he described them, conflict, and we have a lot of conflict in this country right now, it's not good, but it leads to separation of individuals and breakdown of relationships, and disempowerment, and all that kind of stuff. Confrontation is an encounter that leads for us to come together, to rethink what we're doing, to reposition ourselves, to become empowered with a way that we can move forward together. So it's more of that. And then I was looking at this today, that we still operate with these old beliefs and systems that don't currently serve us. And we need to shift our paradigms around power from conflict to confrontation, aggression to assertiveness. Now, those are words I see. I've always thought of them as slightly different meaning than what I just showed you, but and that's the way that we can affect these problems. So I'm going to be critical, but in the end, if we can all kind of think about turning things upside down to get things right side up, to get from inadequate to extraordinary, that is really very exciting. And getting into that mode will create a future. And you have to be zealous nuts to get through this, so you'll see at the end. So I was with this, Philip and I were with this guy T-Bone Burnett last week. And so we came up with it. Somehow we found this. I don't know who wrote this, but if architecture is prose and music, then urban planning is composition. Placemaking is improvisational street performance. So it sort of puts, I think, the professions into these fairly solid foundations, but making the place is improvisation. And that's what's very exciting, because it is improvisation. You don't know what you're going to end up with, and you can't. And that makes it even more exciting. So then, the convergence around place, the idea of all of these movements, equity, design, culture, climate change, food systems, transportation, preservation, health, local economies, community engagement, all can be enhanced by a focus on place. And we'll go through that, and I'll show you more about that. So I grew up in this amazing time, back in the late 60s and 70s, where these were the people that were shaping the conversation at that time. I studied with Margaret Mead, Holly White, I worked with him. Jane Jacobs would come into our office frequently until she moved to Toronto. Alan Jacobs at UC Berkeley, and talked about streets, amazing insights. Donald Appiah. All these people are still now being rediscovered and brought back into the language as we try to shape our future. And there's now a lot of research being done on these same issues that are it's really exciting time. So we're in a whole new world, and how do we make that? So Holly White was the person that I worked with and really profoundly shaped my life. But he was a great writer, and I used to have an office next to him, and I would walk by his office, and he would be talking out loud, and he would be taking words and make a sentence out of it. And that sentence was like poetry. And he would start a paragraph off with something like this. If you want to seed a place with activity, put out food. That sounds easy, but it's profound, it's provocative. And yeah, you put out food. Well, the best place to do that, and we have a lot of fun sitting around ice cream stands, because people come in groups and then they eat the ice cream in groups. There's all these wonderful scenes. And this was one that really blew me away, because there's one thing that you never see anywhere, ever, except this one time, is if a little kid does not have ice cream. Never, ever happened. So then I said, oh my God, I got to get another picture. And so he's looking at me, and, knowing I know, he knows what I know, and everyone knows. Anyway, that was wonderful. But it's these little things that go on that make our lives so rich. And then he also said one of the best things about water is to look and feel of it. It's not right to put water before people and then keep them away from it. So you know that her toe is going in and out of that water, and she doesn't even know it. It's sort of this natural inclination to do that. And when you get something like this, You can't keep people away from it, and again, and so these are precious things for people, and if we don't have these, we're missing something. And then this, I love this one more than any, I think. Benches are artifacts, the purpose of which is to punctuate architectural photographs. They are not so good for sitting. Well, you can imagine that's in front of a library in southern France, and this is front of a library, a bookstore in Brooklyn, which actually closed recently, which is very sad. But you can't go by that bookstore without slowing down, without seeing people, without talking to people, without, it's just it's as rich outside as it is inside. And it's that, if you have 10 of those places on a street, you're on a roll. I mean, it's not about streetscape. If you ever hear the word streetscape, strike it from your language. Just immediately raise the question, why are we doing streetscape? Well, we want our places along the street, which then give us reasons to go to those places. Streetscape is a design solution, not a place solution. Was that good enough? I'm trying to figure out how to make this work better, the confrontational part of the discussion. So this a 9-foot bench has a very different dynamic than 3 4-foot benches. And you know that you can come in and different groups can be on a bench, but are you going to go sit next to those people, one of those people alone, and you certainly can't with 2 other people. And then, when you have a great public space and it's raining and you've got comfortable furniture, you can sit outside. And so the toleration for weather situations expands dramatically when you've got good places. And then our favorite bench, it's amazing. And someone yesterday, I don't know if they're here, but they talked about a bench being 2 backsides deep, or so you can have someone on the outside and someone on the inside, and that changes the whole dynamic of that. Because look at how people are sitting there, and they're in these little clusters. But when you go down and sit on a bench like this, some of these people are there to hear what other people have to say. So this is a very social bench, and I keep forgetting it might be 18 or 19 people on that bench. And then, unfortunately, no one was paying attention to these people because I took this picture in Paris. And I guess this is just the way Parisians are, but that would be pretty interesting in Santa Clara. So affection is such a good thing. You feel good when you see other people being affectionate. And I used to think that when I was working with Holly, we would say, well, where do pigs will kiss? Do they kiss in the back of the closet? No, they kiss out front. But then you start realizing that affection has so many aspects to it, and you just know when people feel good that they're affectionate in so many ways. And this is this one here. We love this one because there's 3 generations of women giggling on a bench that someone donated in the community. So it doesn't get better than that. And then the other thing that you learn is people take their shoes off in places where they're comfortable. So, all of these are the metrics that you have to use to assess a good place. And then, this is one of our favorite ones. It doesn't get better than this. So that's what we all want. We all know this. And we go to places, we're all placemakers. We all go to places where there is a sense of place. It's just, we're there. We've already done that. So we know that, but we don't know how to get them. So then Holly wrote this long, but it says it all in a very brief way. End and praise of small spaces. The multiplier effect is tremendous. It's not just the number of people using them, or the larger number who pass by and enjoy them vicariously, or even the larger number who feel better about the city center for knowledge of them. So you don't have to be in them. You can know they're there, and it has a powerful impact on your whole perception, your feeling about the city, and so on. So for a city, those places are priceless, whatever the cost, and they're built with a set of basics, and they're right in front of our noses, if we will look. So that's what we're going to show you some of the most incredibly effective ways of finding those places as a community. So communities today, they're all these separate entities surrounded by parking lots, and where we've got to go is we've got to move them into the civic gathering places, the markets, the squares, and as we go in the future, nothing should be isolated, one-off type of developments that a a library should be next to a market. Take the buildings. The whole idea, we have something called Architecture of Place, where you take everything out of, the building is no longer what your destination is, the place is your destination. So if you have a library, what is going on outside and around it, and inside, so that they're all woven together, and how do you build a building that allows all of these things to be woven together? So no building is now a piece of architecture. In fact, if you think about what we do is we ask people, which I'll show you in a minute, where are their favorite places? They don't talk about the buildings, they talk about their places. See, architects think they're the most important part of a city, but that's not true. It's the places that are far more important. And how do we get them on that? Because then they can thrive in that kind of a world where places is a critical part, and their building is a critical part of those places. So, and then the whole idea is how do we bring this kind of collaborative place governance? This is a whole other topic. We are in a very, the way we govern is not about place. It's about silos. It's about different disciplines. Each discipline has become its own audience. And they deliver their program through the agencies that are part of the city government as their outcomes. And we're saying, no, wait a minute. You've got to put that, turn it upside down. You've got to turn it, so we've got to turn it upside down and get it so the people in place are the objective. And those disciplines can be support for those, resources to those, but they don't determine the process or the outcomes. The outcomes have to be determined by a partnership between the government and the community in an equal way. That's a much longer conversation, but the idea that project-driven or discipline-led or place-sensitive, those are nowhere near where we need to get to. We need to get to this place-led, where the development and the place capital become a major outcome and a major impact on public spaces. So, I think you have something to say. Should I say something different? She and I worked together for 40 years. So, Sherman Common, this is in Toronto. These are two projects, and this gets me mad. So, this project won the Canadian Landscape Architecture Design Award about 3 years ago. And it also, one of the buildings, this building here, won the Architectural Award in Canada. And no one knows what this building is except for about 4 people. It's a water filtration plant. And then this park, I get so furious when I see this. This landscape architect, brilliant designer, he decided that you need these rows of different color stones. And then in each row you have something like a bench or a seesaw or swing. So Kathy and I were there, and this kid comes in, a couple, and their child comes in, and he's playing around, and then he starts taking the white stones and putting them on the black stones. And that was the first thing, that was at the end of that trip. Because they had to put them back and then leave. And then another couple came with their 2 children. Unfortunately, they had 2 children and 2 parents because there was one swing for one person in one and 4 rows down and a swing for another. Now, isn't that just idiotic? And how could you win an award for that? And I got called by the landscape designer of Vancouver. He says, "Why are you meddling in our work? You don't know anything about this." And that didn't go over well. So, but the other side of this is this wonderful woman, amazing woman, Uda Mason, in Toronto. She lived around this Dufferin Grove Park, and it was a very harsh, very difficult place, a lot of social issues. They called them, what do they call them? Toughs. That were owning the park, and she was pregnant, and she had to decide between being afraid or bored, and she decided to be afraid. And so she went out into the park and with some friends, and they started partnering with the people that were using the park, these toughs. And one of the first things they did was build a Portuguese bread oven. Now, these aren't allowed. I mean, these aren't on the, if you look at any pamphlet or thing about parks, there's not going to be a Portuguese bread oven in anywhere. And so because no one could get control of this park, in a positive way. So then they started doing other things, and then some people built a kitchen in the park. Again, not allowed by anyone who does what sets up parks, which is really incredible because parks have become so isolated in what they offer. They offer some very valuable things, but if they become more multidimensional, turn it upside down, create multi-use places rather than parks. We don't even use the word park anymore because it means it's too narrow an outcome. And you need these more multi-use outcomes, which then define, they're more about the community and how the community can create that and use that place and own it and be part of it and shape it. Very different approach. So this is their amphitheater and their stage. And then this is the world's best playground. Mud. And there's the water spigot. And didn't cost very much. And all these other things are going on in that place because the community owns it and participates. So here you have these two diametrically opposed things. One done by, you know, the top professional in their field because he won the award, and the other one done by the community. You know, and where would you go? You know, so and then I also really hate to see architects take over a project. This is Lincoln Center. And they really have done so much damage to Lincoln Center. You'll see why. They put in these sort of token things like a bunch of trees with some chairs. And then they designed this award-winning restaurant where you can get 4 umbrellas and a few people with a roof. And then they do these kinds of fountains where you can't touch. This is all look at me, but don't touch. Award-winning, very much award-winning. It was a rage for a long time. But if you take that water feature and you do this, you have a place. But their desire is not to create a place. And then you take this thing, which is revolutionary in terms of design, and you create that. This actually comes out of a container, opens up, it's in Helsinki, and becomes this amazing waterfront restaurant. So why is one so extreme in the other direction and this one so embracing? And I don't think they win a design. I would give this a design award. But design awards aren't given by people who aren't in the profession. I have had a lot of challenges where I've said, why can't I be part of the jury for a design award? You're not an architect. So architecture of place is a revolution, and that's what we're trying to create. So in Perth, where we were down working on Perth with the cultural center there, this is a fantastic place, but it was buildings were all these brutalist buildings and or heritage buildings with really no use. They were kind of isolated features in this empty world. And so we worked on we had a whole team of people, but the head of this agency, the redevelopment agency, says no designer is allowed to put pen to paper until we have a plan that's community-led. So we did this vision, and we left, and 2 years later we came back, and this is what it was like before, and then after, and then before, and this absolutely blew us away. This thing was then redone by a local television personality who was also a horticulturalist. And so what we had shown was just some things to do with it. But they took what we left them with and took it to a factor of 10 better, which was the best thing that could have happened. So here's what they did. Isn't that amazing? And then the whole place just became a destination. And then this was a place where a lot of people were hanging out, and they turned it into a farm garden, and it became another one of the destinations. So the whole place came alive. And then the building, this is the art museum. All these things were put around it so that you would come to the cultural center, and you'd have all these things going on, and then you'd also go to the museum. So when we went back, the heads of the museums were all engaged because they got really excited about all the things going on. And one of the most incredible things happened was one of the big buildings was a library, a state library. And the woman who ran it took all the library uses off of the ground floor and put them on the mezzanine, on the second floor, so that the ground floor became the town square for the community. So, it all was kind of grew out of these discussions. No one was pushing someone to do anything. It just sort of emerged, like the place, like the Duffer Grove Park. Emerged, the community shaped it to create what they felt would work for them. Pretty amazing stuff. And you know, it's so much pleasure for us because we only got it started and they made it. And they don't remember us, I'm sure, which is even better. So now, we're working here in this Harvard. And it's another problem, but I'm not going to go over that with you. But I'm just going to show you what's happening. So Harvard Yard, about 7 or 8 years ago, for 350 years, this is Harvard Yard. Nice trees, a lot of nice leaves, trees, and some buildings. And then all of a sudden, one day, all these chairs appeared. And it changed the whole dynamic of this place. So right next to that is this place here. It's a big green. We did a placemaking vision of the community. And you break it down into these, in this case, 14 different places. And then each place has a program. And then the outcome was this. It became the square for Harvard. And there's so much more to this that I can't show, but it was a revolution because they never had a central gathering place. And it just shows, and the impact is phenomenal. I got some pictures today of what was going on this weekend. And it has had such an enormous impact. Because it's also the community is part of this. It's not just the university. So making it happen, the strategy for implementation is how do we create these energetic anchors of activity? And the power of 10. This is such a mind-blowing idea. It was really amazing how it came to be. Because we were working on the Seattle Art Museum up in Seattle, and we were trying to figure out how to do placemaking around the museum, and they were going to double in size, take up the whole block, and so on. And the woman who was running it, after our workshop where we do this place game, she said, well, how many places do you need in the ground floor of this museum and outside? And we didn't know what to say, so we said 10. And then she said, well, how many uses do you need in each of those places? And again, we had no idea what to say. So we said 10. So that was the foundation of this amazing idea because I'm going to show you in a second that how if you as a community start talking about your best and worst places, and which I'll share in just a second. But the other things here are, bring me inside out. We were in Bermuda earlier this week. And we were working in this UNESCO World Heritage site. And it had all this beautiful architecture that was very colorful. But all of the retail was inside the buildings. You couldn't see anything. The street was a vacant street with beautiful colored buildings. And so they're going to change that. They're going to bring things out. They're going to do the placemaking and bring it out. So now there's life in these places, not just these buildings. And then the way to do that is to lighter, quicker, cheaper, and then make it a movable feast and crowdsource ideas. It's all about creating community. So here, the power of 10, you can transform a neighborhood, a street, a city, a region with this simple idea that a great city needs 10 destinations. In each of those destinations, you need 10 destinations within that, so 10 and then 10. And each of those 10 destinations, you need 10 things to do. So in the case of New York, these are the key destinations in New York City. But when we started working 40 years ago, none of them were working at anywhere near the level that they needed to work. Now this is Bryant Park and Rockefeller Center and Times Square. We worked on all of those. When you take just Bryant Park and you break it down, there are probably 20 places in Bryant Park where there are 10 things to do. So you can see these are little clusters, little hubs of activity, and this happens to be where there's a fountain, and there's 10 things to do there. So when you go to a place like this, you might go for 3 reasons one day, and then 3 another. Boy, I got to go back there the day after because I didn't do these 7 other things. So that's what it does to you as a person, because you feel so good in these places. They thrive in your mind and in your soul. You go to them. So we were working in Atlanta and with a bunch of stakeholders, and this is the kind of thing that can be done in Santa Clara that would really work. Is you take a plan of a good part of Santa Clara, which is probably somewhat similar in size, and you give groups of people red, yellow, and green dots. A red dot is for a bad place, a yellow is for a place with a big opportunity, and a green dot is for a good place. So this is at Midtown Atlanta, and all these stakeholders, we're standing there, we haven't a clue where we would put one, but they all decided collectively in 3 different tables, and so this is their perception. And then you can then take these and you can cluster them, and you can then start acting on these, because the people who are actually putting these dots on are the ones who own the building or lived in them or whatever. So they are now have made the decision themselves on where the critical places are to work. It isn't us coming in and saying, well, you should do this, this, and this. And they came up with really good places and ones that we would never have come up with. So, one of the ones that we worked on early on was Bryant Park. And this is what it was like before and after. You really felt undesirable being in the park before. And there was virtually nothing to do before and after. But Bryant Park has all these destinations. And each of those have 10 things to do. So it's a pretty amazing place to go, and then they have a winter program. So 95%, 99% of the success of Bryant Park is the way it's managed. Okay? It's just, and here's the winter program. And then another one we worked on was in Pittsburgh, which was really not working at all. In the history of Pittsburgh, it used to be a market building, and then it evolved the upper right to 4 squares, and then there, and then more recently the one on the lower right. And again, we break it down into these different places because we have to solve the problem of each one of those different places. And so you come up with a program, and then you implement it. And one issue is the inner square and the outer square is you don't put curves in streets. You put shared space around so that you walk right across anywhere. There's no crosswalks. You walk right across into the buildings, or the buildings come out, or in the park, or in the square as well. And so the inner and the outer square have to be connected, and they build off of each other. And the place becomes this phenomenal destination. And then that destination then becomes the anchor for other things to happen. So it starts to spread. And one of the qualities of a great square it needs to reach out like an octopus. And then the biggest one, from our point of view, is this Detroit, which we worked there in 2000, and helped do a central plaza. But Detroit is an amazing city. It had about 1.8 million people, and then it went down to about 700,000. So basically, people evacuated. And these are the key destinations that we did a placemaking plan for most of this area here. And Detroit looked like this in 1917. And that Soldiers and Sailors Monument in 1999 is there. That didn't move. See that thing there? There. It did not move. So they basically tore everything down. Just emptied out. The city was emptied out. And then we started working in 2000, and they brought in a building, and they did this square. And then we were brought in when this new guy came in, Dan Gilbert, who owns Quicken Loans, and he bought 85 buildings in downtown at the bottom of the market at pennies on the dollar because the place has gone bankrupt. and this was the vision. And then 3 months later, we gave the presentation in March, and we started implementing it in June, and this was what was going on in September. So just the lighter, quicker, cheaper became the way they worked. Everything they did was about lighter, quicker, cheaper, creating something quickly. Their metric was to build something, and then if it worked, it was work. They would go on to the next thing. So they didn't do any analysis. They just, if it worked morning, noon, and night, that was their metric. So they just were on a roll. They did crowdsourced everything. People came up with ideas. The community owns all of it. And when we announced it in the end of March, 4 years ago, it was, today it has become a major destination to transform Detroit in a way no one could ever imagine. And most of this is programming. See, it's not all about a big new design. It's about program, which is very different. And there's the monument with the beach that Southwest Airlines paid for. We have a partnership with Southwest Airlines to do activations in the cities they serve, and we've done about 20 of them. And I think we're looking at San Jose. I think they put it in an application. So, but anyway, so what happened here was also a lesson that we learned. That if you break that one space down into 10 places and you start thinking about what are the additional activities that you can put in there, it can go from something is pretty exceptional to something extraordinary. So you're never finished. And if you think you are, you're wrong. I mean, it just gets better. It can get better and better. And so this is what happened there. And this is Dan Gilbert playing the piano. So the other thing that comes out in all of this is that this complexity is really what we're all very comfortable with. Complexity on many levels, whether you're in a natural environment or a human environment. As long as it kind of isn't controlled and over-organized, you as a human being can feel great relief in being around other people. Like you go to a market, great market, a farmer's market or something. You're with people, you're right next to them, you're rubbing elbows, you're interacting with people, you buy food. People feel very comfortable in that. But you know, a lot of people in the design world don't want you to get too close to each other. They want you to look at what it is that they've done. So the power of place on streets is a big, big deal, especially for Santa Clara, because this is the bookstore where there's at least 10 places, 10 things to do there that we showed earlier. So what we've been doing for so many years is design our communities around cars and traffic, and we get more cars and traffic. That is not the future. We can't do that anymore. But we can start designing our community around people and places and get more of those. And so that's what we find is going on all up and down the peninsula. Is Santa Clara part of the peninsula? Is it? It is? No. Where does it stop? What? Where does the peninsula stop? Okay. Anyway, so thank you. I've always wondered that. So streets as places. So this is the idea that is transformative. How do you create a street of places? And this is this amazing guy Hans Monderman, who's an extremely proficient traffic engineer. He used to work on intersections like the one on the left and trying to increase the capacity of the intersection. He was a very quantitative type of person, and he sort of gave up on that because all he got was more confusion and more what he felt were more accidents. So he then went to something called the shared space, where he took out the stop signs and the lights. He did this in about 150 places up there. So he took a place like that, which was a 0 on the scale of 0 to 1,000,000 in terms of a sense of place. And he did this. And so there are no stop signs. Everyone comes into the space and realizes that they have to see what's going on. And if there's a pedestrian, what he did in these 150 places is he created opportunities for eye contact. That was his whole purpose, was eye contact. So that people would make a decision on who would go, and people would not. And that was a revolution of traffic. So here, these people come along on the bike, and they nod, and they make the arrangements. They go. But the other thing that we were standing there with him one day, Kathy and I were, and a bus driver came up, opened the door, and he said to Hans Monument, he said, "Thank you, you have made my life so much better." But what has happened here is actually increased the capacity of the intersection, but also made it human at the same time. So there's a revolution, and more people are looking at this, or other ways of redefining roads other than the way we've been doing it for so long. And we have an engineer in our, we went to get a job at the New Jersey Department of Transportation to do training. And it was the last thing in the world we ever thought we could get. And so we went in, and I just said, whatever a traffic engineer says, do the opposite, and you'll be building your community. And we got the job. We trained all the traffic engineers in New Jersey because we turned it upside down. And he had realized by then, he now works for us, but he didn't realize then that, we're not getting anywhere. We're just creating nothing. And we have to create something. So he's now working all over the world on that. So the accident rates went down. It was safer in that space. And then this is him, Gary Toth. This is also in Northern Holland. And we put him out in the middle of the street. And then this truck comes along and goes by. No one honks. He has just as much a right to be there as anyone else. So then, the next thing was to put him on a chair. And he's never been the same since. So, once you go through that re-indoctrination, you're finished. So anyway, so he says, if you want vehicles to behave like they're in a village, build one. And then essentially, this is the key part here. What it means is the transfer of power and responsibility from the state to the individual and the community. So eye contact. That's what it is, eye contact. That's the transfer of responsibility, which is really amazing. So then, we can't look at a street ever the same way. And we were in Buenos Aires a while back, and we were in this intersection, and all of a sudden we realized that the traffic was slowing down, and the people were coming in, sitting on the cafes on three corners, and then people were standing in the street, and the cars slowed down, and for the entire lunch, and then it became this destination, and this guy comes along with balloons. He can't walk on the sidewalk. He has to walk in the street, and so the whole place becomes a destination. So intersections can become squares. They can become destinations. And then what you get are this kind of organic and people who, sitting on the bollards, you wouldn't think of sitting on them until it became a good place. And then going back to our neighborhood, these are illegal. This is where we live in Brooklyn. And the one on the right, that's not a bench, in case you can't tell. It's this tree garden. You see, we can't put a bench out there like that, so it's illegal. But it's a tree garden, so that works. It's a tree garden. And so he's got them all up and down. And these people, where are they from? They're from the Middle East. Morocco, I guess. So, and then they put this out, and that's not a bench. And the dog likes it. So, where you get these kinds of organic kinds of things that are done by people in the community, you get amazing reactions. And it becomes their place, and you can't take it away from them. So the other thing this is truly amazing stuff. Lighter, quicker, cheaper. There's nothing more exciting than this and people, the fellow that we know very well came up with this term, so we honor him with this term. But when we go to a place, some people can't remember whether it's quicker, lighter, cheaper, or cheaper, quicker, lighter, and it all works. Because that's all of these things are going on. So here are three of them. Now this is amazing because that brick building is this building. Okay? that brick building was painted on the back, okay? And then that became that in 3 months. So all that is garages with artist design facades.
Wow.
And it's called Light Brick G. And there are 60 businesses there, and they've been there for 40 years. And it is the main destination along the South Bank, other than the Borough Market in London. And then this is another one where something like 6 pretty well-known chefs. See, this is totally isolated. You can't get there from over there. It's called Paper Island, and they took this warehouse and they created the Paper Island. And the inside of it is incredibly organic. Some of them are built, there's something like 35 kiosks of different cultures. And one of the biggest things that we all are struggling with is how do we get people to come into our communities and create new opportunities? So these kinds of squares and markets, and this is a major impact on doing that. We'll be working in Pershing Square next week, and we're getting 25 kiosks that are going to go in, and we'll get local purveyors, food purveyors to come in and occupy those. It'll all be local. So you can do amazing stuff in a short period of time, and I think this was maybe the one I liked the most, because these are just containers, and they put them around, I think there are about 4 destinations within it. So there's a garden, there's a little area where they have these Etsy markets. The one up in the upper left is where there's a music and food, and the whole place was there for about 6 months. And the developer who owned the property let them go, be there. And then because there was so much attention to it, he got some people to develop the property. So it was awesome. So in closing, you have to turn everything upside down. Now we all agree with this, right? Does that make sense? To get it right side up, to get from inadequate to extraordinary. And it's hard. We know it's hard. But the characteristics of what you get when you think about it is that good places breed healthy activity. People attract people. When you focus on place, you do everything differently. It takes many disciplines and skills to create a place. It takes a community to create a place. Amenities that make a place comfortable are critical. You can't know what you're going to end up with. Each place has its own identity, and you can't have anything less than excellence. Now this is the most important thing from my point of view, because if you don't have excellence, you're diminishing the potential of people in your community to thrive. And that's big, really big. So it has to be a campaign. And it's the vision, communicate it, look for impediments, organize a strong team, tackle complacency, produce short-term wins, take on bigger challenges, and connect change with the culture of the community. This was found this in Bermuda. You know, some people want it to happen, some wish it would happen, and others make it happen. So you've all transitioned from wishing to wanting to making it. The people who make it are zealous nuts. And they are visionaries with a poorly developed sense of humor. No concept of the odds against them, and they make the impossible happen. Now, where's that zealous nut? There he is, back there. There's one right there. I see one. He's running the city. And they all listen to him. And they love him. And he loves you. So this is, you know, and he's been cloned. He's being cloned. Because he's one of the best out there. So when you have someone like that, you're in trouble. You're in good trouble. So go back to this. Think about that. And then think about this a little bit, how placemaking in place can mobilize communities, cities, countries to define their future, add purpose and foundation to people's lives, create ownership and shared value, support innovation and entrepreneurship, allow local wisdom and common sense to thrive. It's community-based, holistic, and inclusive. The outcomes can be enormous, and they can be done. So, improvisation. That's the word, I think. Excuse me, I made it through. And that's our website. So there's a lot of resources. And everything on our website is available, and we really enjoy being with people. We'd love to see people take their future and make it, and we like to be a part of it. And I think it's a very good way to live your lives, is to do that for people in your community, along with everyone else. So thank you.
So thank you all. We'll have a few minutes now for some Q&A. But before we launch into that, I want to make sure everyone here knows that tomorrow we have a workshop at 9 o'clock at the Senior Center where we'll be looking at doing some placemaking exercises together for the former barrack property at 90 North Winchester. And PPS is going to be leading us in that. So we're very glad to have them there. And I also just mentioned that we're going to have more of these placemaking lectures or panel discussions in the future. We have some coming up later at the end of April and into May. So look for that information. With that, we have microphones and
yeah, and then in the back there, Philip Wynn and Elena Madison are the ones that are going to be leading this, and in the front row is Kathy Neff. And we will all be back here again to help you create your future. So this is really important. So questions? Yeah.
Thank you for your time. And a lot of what you said, I hope some of our city officials said, because one of the big problems I think we have in Santa Clara is I feel like we're pulling teeth to get the public involved and, again, involve the community. And I thank you for saying that, because I must say that a dozen times every single meeting. One of the problems we have in this area is transportation. Our public transportation system sucks. So in Brooklyn and in New York, you have a very well-established, so when you talk about the Grand Boulevard, it's not brand. And that's, how do you start building places when you don't have that foundation? It's kind of a chicken and egg problem that we have here. So how do you get started? And if you have to build it around transportation, we're kind of starting very handicapped to begin with.
Well, you know, transportation, if it's used as a community building exercise where it creates, you find the places and you go to those places, you then connect those places with transportation and those places are then built. There's something about the difference between mobility and accessibility. What you're trying to do is to get to be accessible so that you get access to the places you want to go to. But mobility means you just drive around and around and around. And the less obstacles you have, the bigger the roads, and the less the community you have. So think about accessibility, which gets to her point.
Thank you for coming tonight. It was a very interesting discussion. I noticed in one of your early visuals that you did, when you had all your circles and how they come together, and it was not a circle for housing. And so, I mean, kind of the corollary to the point that Debbie raised about transportation are some of the challenges that we have around housing and how things are separated. So I wondered if you could comment about how do you place housing in relationship to these other elements that you brought out to assist with the placemaking.
Well, it's harder in suburban areas. If you have a school, that becomes a multi-use destination. You know, or a library, that becomes a multi-use destination. So any kind of non-residential becomes one of those. And there's this guy down in Menlo Park who's made his front yard a destination called Playburger. So he's been trying to get away from that, where it's just all private places, to create shared space. Well, you can do the shared space actually on the street by making the street basically not a shared space. And with the low traffic volumes in a lot of these communities, you can actually do stuff there. But then, there's a story. We were working in Canada and in Mississauga, and this guy was walking back from a meeting, and he said to me, "I put a bench on the street corner where I live." And I said, "Well, what happened?" He said, "The whole community went apoplectic because you reached out and put a bench." And I said, "Well, what happened then?" And he said, "Well, someone else put a bench out." And that broke the ice. So this whole idea of private and removed, public, can go through little stages to get to where you have those places. So it's hard. But every place has a potential that we've seen.
I think the quicker, lighter, cheaper concept I'm super intrigued by. I sort of see it as a double-edged sword, however. On the one hand, like very authentic urban day, everyday urbanism, people having the agency to create their own places. And on the other hand, I sort of see it as like purely quicker, lighter, and cheaper, maybe signaling of gentrification or that kind of feeling of a place. So how do you navigate that when you're working with the community and implementing that concept?
Well, I'm not quite sure I understand the question, but let me see if I'm answering it. What we say is lighter, quicker, cheaper is 1 to 4 months, okay? And then lighter, quicker, lighter is 1 to 4 months. And then you go cheaper, quicker, lighter, and that's 1 to 4 months. So what you're doing is you're creating a foundation for the next step because you're going to keep doing it. And at Harvard, we had no idea what to do in that space. We had to experiment, and we now have a pretty good one space. There's another we're getting close to. And after 3 or 4 years, we will now have the foundation of what can be one of the most extraordinary squares because it grows out of people coming and using it. So we have a phrase that you can't know what you're going to end up with. And how do you get there is through the lighter, quicker, cheaper. Instead of doing a design and finishing it, there's a longer story there because we got into conflict with a landscape architect who thought he was a genius.
I have a question that's not mine, but it's from somebody who's watching the live stream online. And this person's name is Aunt Catherine. And she's asking, I'm just going to read the question as she wrote it. I'd love to see more small businesses thrive along El Camino, but rent and regulations make it so that small businesses need to shut down because they can no longer afford staying here. How can we include them in the development of creating more retail at El Camino?
That is probably one of the best questions that you could ask because everything is already controlled. You cannot get into many places because it's all leased up and the leases are too high. So the idea of squares and markets and multi-use is you put 3 stalls in the schoolyard and people come on Saturday with a market or a flea market, you're doing something. So it's really finding those public spaces, and instead of them being public in the sense of empty, in the sense of public being in the sense that they're embracing people in the community and what they do and what they want to do, those are very different kinds of public. So as we move away from the sterility and the privatization idea, to the inclusive idea of how do you bring people into the community and give them jobs and give them a future. And then they can move, starting in a market, they can move out from there into other more structured systems.
I have a question also similar to this young lady's question about balance. I really like the idea of lighter, quicker, cheaper. And maybe I didn't fully understand it correctly because you clarified it just now saying it basically has to do with the duration of the effort. So that's great. But I was looking at the Paper Island one that you brought up on the screen. That is really creative and really neat. But it also concerns me because I'm not a professional, but just looking at that, I can see code violations. And, so how do you balance between city?
Yeah. Okay. A lot of these codes are set up by sort of organized business that may be appropriate for them. But when you go into this lighter, quicker, cheaper, we often say you need to do a bureaucracy-free zone. So you create an environment where things can happen, and then you rewrite the rules. And what's the biggest obstacle is actually people who are in these towns don't feel they can do anything because they think there's so many rules. There aren't as many rules as people think. So once you get out of that mindset, you can be much more creative. And then you can rewrite the rules, because some of them were done 50 years ago under different circumstances. So it's part of getting out of jail. Everything we're talking about is getting out of a jail that we've been put into over the last 70 years. It's a jailbreak. Yeah.
I have another question from online. This one's from Harbir, and she's asking, how do we get a unified support from the cities across El Camino to work on improving transportation and business? So the question is on working with other cities, for a grander, problem.
Well, the Grand Boulevard, it can emerge over time, and I haven't heard what's going on, but if you think of destinations and places, each of those places starts to grab a hold of people who are driving by, and the capacity of the street, the boulevard, is reduced so that it becomes more and more local, community by community, and you are then pushed to the 101 or to the 380. 280. And not, so you don't drive on El Camino unless you're going because you like the experience, which is a great experience. So you can fine-tune a street to bring it into the context that supports more of that community rather than having people rush through and not pay any attention to it. So streets can be, we call streets as places, and so each town can actually make it more for them. And that's a big opportunity, a really big opportunity. Yeah,
El Camino, you started with that Art Grand Road. It's a state highway, and in my neighborhood, which is the Shasta Handship, at El Camino, we got what we did to make it a neighborhood and are going to make it a 2-lane road, is we got rid of the state highway designation and put it somewhere else. And so we can make it into a people street. Now, if Santa Clara University can move El Camino Real, which they did for the campus to include it together, I'm sure there's some way they can do something else to help El Camino Real become more
of a series of places.
Of a series of places, because it should be, because it's our first road, and it's the destination to the mission, which is the center of Santa Clara.
Yeah, I mean it's a kind of I don't know what you call it, but if you can do El Camino Real community by community, you have changed the whole image of this whole area, because that is really precious. So let me tell you a story, though. It's hard because we were working on the peninsula further north on El Camino, and we had wonderful participation from the state DOT, right up to the director. And then there's this office of exceptions. And the person who ran that was very excited about doing exceptions that people would come up with. But when we were working in each of the towns, they all complained about traffic. And when anything came up that would even slightly modify the traffic, they would say, we don't want that. So they're out of one side of their mouth, they're saying, they're almost bigger traffic engineers than the state DOT was. And out of the other side of the mouth, but we want to go to these places, but you can't have both. You got to really get out of that mold, because it doesn't. That's the jailbreak now. So life is really good when you don't have to drive. It really is. Yeah.
Hi, Scott Lay here. If we are the center of what's possible, that means we have not just top-down, we have bottom-up grassroots, we have experimentation, we have people exploring options in the ways that you mentioned. What are the various ways that we can reignite the passion for the many different neighborhoods that we have? We're not just one Santa Clara. In a way, we're one Santa Clara, but we're a ton of different villages in Santa Clara, and many people have been there literally, 3 to 5 generations, and people have literally just been here 3 weeks. How do we bring the city alive? And I guess Guy Kawasaki talked about the 1,000 blossoms, 1,000 seeds.
Well, and that's what we're going to do with when we come back, is we're going to do a whole workshop on the Power of 10. And then people in communities, what we did in Bermuda earlier this week, there are 9 parishes which are 9 different communities. And we had the map, say here, of each parish, or each neighborhood, up on the wall. And then there were about 75 people, and they came and they started putting the dots on their parish. And if they knew the next parish, they would put it on. And so that started getting them thinking. And one of the things they left off were the churches. And they couldn't believe that they'd left off. All 75 left off the churches. So they started putting dots on those. So that's the beginning. And then you come up with the lighter, quicker, cheaper activations. And often there can be minor traffic solutions where you slow something down. Or you could go to a school and start diversifying the uses, or a park. But if you get out of if you're out of jail in terms of what a park is to what a gathering place is, you can make a lot of progress pretty quickly. And every community can do this. And the best people are in the community, and sometimes the best people are the children, too. So I would do it with every single school. I would have them do the same thing. This community organizing is the only way you're going to get the outcomes that you want. And then to get the success every time, in a short, that's why lighter, quicker, cheaper. You do something and then you start implementing it within weeks. You don't do big plans, you do little ones, little activations. And in fact, the guy in Bermuda, who was the parks commissioner, we were with the mayor, and I said, well, maybe you should rename him as the commissioner of activation, community activation, and implementation. Yeah, that would be great. So you could change the names of these departments and give them the name that you want that's going to deliver the outcome. And you've got a wonderful mayor over there who really loves it. So, you want to say anything? No, I'm good. She's terrific. She really is. So, you've got a great future ahead of you. So, anything else? Yeah. But there's one way back there first, and then you.
You've spoken an awful lot about urban spaces, and have you had any success in dragging suburban neighbors into a urban place, or a place? In other words, you make a place in the middle of suburbia. How do you get these suburban neighbors into that place?
Well, I think it's like we live across the street in Brooklyn.
Fred, can you repeat the question?
Oh, the question is how do we get people that live in suburbia into a kind of urban space? And I think that there can be small, we would call them multidimensional spaces in a suburban area that might be a schoolyard. And you can do different things in that schoolyard, and then people will flock to it. And especially if it's around their issues and needs, they will become. Every day they'll try to come to it if it's good. Or that, what happens, trying to think of, like Bryant Park, if you have 100 things to do, you're only going to do a few every day. Across the street in our elementary school, it's amazing what goes on there. And everyone comes there because there's something to do. It's really getting things to do. That's what yeah, you have it. You and then,
I just want to say that I think one of the challenges of a lot of suburbia is finding those places where you can make a space. I mean, the examples of schools, a lot of communities, there may not be a school that nearby, and what we have is 7, 8-lane arterials, and we're doing that on Stevens Creek. Actually, it's very challenging. Where is that opportunity site? And I think it's great that I can serve the community and non-professional staff, but it's hard to find that with without huge interventions like a Santana Well. It's really challenging. But I like the idea of a school. Or actually,
the microphone and your.
I don't know where the microphone go. Oh, well, let me do that. That's a very good question. So you ask the question and then you'll ask it again. Go ahead.
Okay. So it sounds like you're trying to create an idea where the old idea of commons is being recaptured.
The commons, yeah.
But I noticed from your photographs in all these places where people are gathering and parks and benches and benching places, if you took those same photographs around here, you will see people's heads bowed, worshiping to the texting machine. And the whole concept of cyberspace versus physical space, I think, is really an issue here in the Valley. maybe not
Right.
in
No,
these other other
pretty much
places.
everywhere. Yeah.
How does that overcome or integrate it into this process?
Well, what you're doing by creating these dynamic environments, you will want to be in them. And then when you go to them, you'll realize that people are not looking at their iPhones as much as they would have in another place. The best places, people don't have time to look at their iPhones. And you can see that happening. Once they start connecting with people, they don't even, they don't look at their iPhones. So it's getting that connection that everyone wants. Everyone wants to be connected to other people. They want to be the voyeurs. They want to watch a little girl playing with another little girl, or a grandparent playing with their grandchild. I mean, that's far more interesting because it's alive, it's authentic, it's real, it's right there. And so those things are happening. You'll just see that whole idea is you've won the battle in a way, and you've created those connections. So great places really do not have a lot of people looking at iPhones. Then you got it there.
Oh, so I have a mic. My name. Yeah. Okay. So I guess my question, or it wasn't even a question, it was more a discussion and maybe a comment, is that I think in many suburban environments in this valley, and a number of us are working on Stevens Creek Boulevard right now. It's very challenging to find those opportunity sites because you have 6-7 lane arterials, you have lots of commercial shopping centers with huge parking lots, and it's really, really challenging to find those spaces from which you can work. I do like your idea, however, of using a school. That's a great, I was in Victoria, BC, and they had an example of that in Victoria. I think the other place too is just even the neighborhood street where people start to use the space, their front yards, or they do events in their street on a regular basis. And just the concept of the community itself actually identifying the opportunity site, I think is really important and not professional staff.
Yeah, so, no, that's exactly right. Good.
You keep mentioning the Grand Boulevard. Personally, I think in Santa Clara it's been an absolute failure. In Santa Clara, they've used that as an excuse to put in a lot of packed and stacked housing and to put in a bunch of ceramic pots and some lighting that have plastic plants hanging to it. It hasn't been any kind of placemaking whatsoever in the city of Santa Clara. It's been a whole lot of poorly done everything. So perhaps you envisioned something that never got implemented or was implemented incorrectly in Santa Clara. So if you could expand what the Grand Boulevard was supposed to be, because again, in my opinion, in Santa Clara, it's a flop. So what we have here, what perhaps we did.
I'll bet you that we could take all of you to El Camino, break you up into groups, and within 3 hours you would find 500 things to do that would make the Grand Boulevard a better place.
In Santa Clara?
In Santa Clara.
Because we
What?
It's because we would make it happen.
Because you would make it happen. I guarantee you. Kathy and I have a disease. We can't go anywhere without seeing what could happen. And believe me, a lot can happen there. But it has to be a concerted effort. And then the traffic engineers have to well, that's a terrible thing to say. We were in Santa Barbara, and I was furious because it's a mostly pedestrian street. There's a street that comes right through the center, connected two sides. You go up and we push the button, and we have to wait for 20 seconds for the light to change. Well, I gave a talk later that day, and the traffic engineer was sitting where he is, and I said, you might want to consider giving your traffic engineer a frontal lobotomy. He thinks cars are more important than people. That has to change. The next day, we're in the city hall meeting with him and other city people, and this guy knocks on the door, and he has a green hat, a green mask, green shoes, and a scalpel, and a green outfit. And he says, I'm here to do the frontal lobotomy. I kid you not. And he was running for city council. So that was the reason. But, he actually left his job and went to work somewhere else. So if your city doesn't have people that are going to make this work, then I know a doctor.
So I see you're about to get the hook over here. I got just a couple quick questions. I'm over here, Fred. I'm over to your left.
Oh, hi.
I have two questions for you. The first is, a lot of the larger projects that are happening around here, a lot of the larger projects that are happening around here are on land that's getting redeveloped. They're tearing something down. There's not a lot of open space land. They're 5, 6, 8 acres sometimes. What is your suggestion to approach that type of development strategy in terms of creating a sense of place? That was my first. And the second is, before you go, can you leave us with, three examples that we can do immediately to engage effectively? Some pearls that just give us direction specific on how can we get more effectively engaged to try and implement some of your vision ideas.
Well, up in Mountain View, one of the city council members wouldn't let a development project go through without us working it through. And what was so interesting about that is when they had gone with their development project to the city council for approval, they were all talking about little minor design details. But when we went, they gave us 2 hours because they wanted to talk about what kind of a place it was going to become. So there was far more interested in the place than there was in the design details. So if you can build that agenda for any person who's doing the development, like the one that we're working on here, you can actually begin to nibble at that idea and then build a platform for creating the best here. For everything that goes in, it's got to have a higher level of impact in terms of how it serves the public in a diverse, dynamic way. That's called architecture of place. So if that's your agenda, you could be really successful. And so then the other, I have a good answer, I think. There was a wonderful, wonderful experience that we had in Seattle where parents brought their kids and had them walk around the city downtown. And then they came up with recommendations on how to improve the city. And they were brilliant. Kids. So, they're unfettered by the lives that they are going to lead or have to lead. So they have a more openness. So it's getting people who are more open to that and then kind of listening to them and say, we're going to come up with the 5 best ideas we're going to start implementing. So you get the school children to do that. They will build the future. So there's a lot of, once you're over the hurdle and you turn everything upside down, the future is incredibly bright. So maybe the last one is
this may not be a question, but more of a comment. I really appreciate you encouraging us to improvise. But what I'm finding in my neighborhood is that my neighbors aren't even able to change the design of the facade of their houses that were built 60, 70 years ago. And I see you saying, let's break the mold, but, I don't know how that can be done.
Well, you're saying that you can't really change the design of the facade? Yeah. I think preservation has to evolve too and get out of its jail and into how do you create more presence on the street. Like we have a place in Florida and what they're building there, every new building is about garages on the street. And every new building, in my opinion, should be about a porch on the street. And so that's that. If you can just pass that, I mean, you can say that the garages can't be seen from the street, but porches can be. So, and that changes the facade of it. And then if you can open it up and put a porch out there, the nicest thing is that you see in the communities where people have a porch and they can sit there and other people can see them. So it's getting people out there in front of their house, using it instead of the front yard syndrome, where it's just something to look at. So you could even do a competition, and we just brainstorm a little bit, for people who do the best way of presenting their lives on the street. Or you could come up with something, and then you could do that. We were in Australia, and they had a competition about the best front yard displays. Well, you could do the best front yard seating or place. Have people, that's actually a pretty good idea. You see, what happens is someone asks a question like that, and you begin to see what a potential answer is. You don't know what that is ahead of time. That's really good. So anyway, we have a great future here. You're all zealous nuts, right? That'll make it happen.
Thank you again. Thank you everyone for coming today. Really appreciate you here. And remember, we have our workshop tomorrow. And then, as Fred mentioned, there will be a Power of 10 workshop at a date to be determined. We'll make sure that word gets out. And then we have other activities as well. So I hope that you can all stay engaged and we can continue this conversation.
Tomorrow time and location?
Tomorrow is at 9 o'clock at the Senior Center. 9 to 11. Santa Clara Senior Center.
Where can we find out about future events? Can we subscribe to notification?
So do you want to take that one? We have on our website, we post it all out. I know we send it out through Nextdoor and Facebook and various groups like that. And we have a sign up on our website for notices, so we can get you the information.
So which website are you talking about? If there's something for the city?
Yeah, the City of Santa Clara website, yeah.
E-Notify, yeah.
E-Notify is on our city website. So if you go to our City of Santa Clara website, there's a place, E-Notify, that you can sign up, and that's an email subscription. And the information is sent out that way.
You know, and when you get the information, share it with your neighbors, so that you keep building that network.
Please share with your neighbors. As you learn what's happening, please, word of mouth is the best way to publicize these things. And I apologize, I didn't introduce myself at the beginning. I'm Andrew Crabtree with the City of Santa Clara. We're hosting this event along with Santa Clara University. We're obviously in their facility and we're hosting these activities together. So thank you all, and have a good one.
That was pretty awesome. And I'm going to try to show around here because a whole lot more people came to the place, and it's like a lot more people than when we started. And it's really well attended and a lot of really nice questions. And I actually was really impressed by the presentation and kind of the concept that it's not about design, it's about places that bring people together and activities. And I'm just sitting here and I'm thinking, like, oh my God, the park next to my house, like, it's mostly empty. The park is falling apart in more places than one. And I'm like, wow, what I came up with like a million ideas, literally like 6 ideas that I could do to the park. But obviously it's a lot more than just thinking of the idea and like making that park a place where people get together. And it's not just, for toddlers and young kids to just go down the slide, but it actually is a place where people of all ages want to go to. So I mean, it's just, I'm sitting here and my mind is like, the gears in my mind are cranking. And so anyways, I thought it was awesome. I'm really excited to see how the workshop tomorrow goes at 9 a.m. at the Santa Clara Senior Center, I believe on Fremont Street. Hopefully I'll see how they actually implement it. I mean, like, the talk was great, but, seeing how they implement it is going to be kind of where the proof is in the pudding. And he obviously had a lot of really cool examples. But, kind of being a part of actually working through it is going to be cool. Whether or not you're particularly or specifically interested about the former barrack site, that's 90 North Winchester, which is what tomorrow's going to be specifically on, but following, how they do it and kind of the steps they do and actually putting it to action, I'm pretty excited about seeing how that works out, how that plays out. So let me see here. Is there anybody who I want to maybe, bother for their opinions? Kind of see if there's anybody here that would be interesting to talk to. Maybe we can go to Raj and Steve here, who are on our planning commission. and see what they think about it.
What's your name?
My name's Hosam.
Okay.
Yes.
And I'm Adina. I may have
Nice to meet you,
interacted
Adina.
with you online. And are you involved with Kirk and whatchamacallits?
Well, they're doing it tomorrow.
Yeah.
So the workshop is tomorrow that he was talking about at 9
So
a.m.
are you with the community group of the city or?
No, I'm not with the city. I'm just a resident.
guy.
I'm just some guy. Exactly. That's the best way to put it. I'm just a guy.
Super. And here's some more folks who are from Sunnyvale and have been.
Well, let me just, because I'm live streaming right now, let me go grab a couple of these guys and then, hey, Steve and Raj. So I want to get your guys' live thoughts as planning commissioners as to what you guys just heard. This is Steve Kelly, who's a planning commissioner in Santa Clara. What's up, Steve?
Well, I actually want to see more engaging activities because what we've seen go in so far, like on the El Camino, it hasn't had any public areas where we can have community events and activities. And that's my biggest disappointment. So my hope is an event like this will spur more
So what's the action plan?
development that is people-centered.
Yeah, that's what I loved about his presentation. I thought it was the kind of the gem out of the whole presentation is focusing on people and less on architecture and design and the specific buildings, but about what activities those spaces.
Yeah, I mean, like Santa Clara Town Center has been a great economic
So basically start
boom to the
surprise.
city, yeah.
Well, boom, surprise.
Although
better than everybody anticipated.
you can do some C-Corp.
But it doesn't have any community events.
Yeah, there's no central hub in the whole center. Yeah.
So my hope is like Moonlight's Lane Center, where you have a large enough space, you can have a public area that's walkable and with a public plaza.
Like a square plaza. Yeah.
And then we can have more activities and events. Because that's what we really need. We need entertainment and recreation as a centerpiece.
Places for people to hang out and do stuff. That's
And we need more homes that kind of break the mold.
Oh, yeah. He was talking about the facades. I'm like, okay. I've been there, done that.
Most people,
Get in on this, Raj.
Yes, sir.
Get in on this.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Sorry, Steve. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, let's hear Raj's thoughts.
Raj, what do you think? So Raj here is a planning commissioner here in the city as well. I was just getting Steve's thoughts. What do you think?
I think this is one of a very
You're being
good,
live streamed. I think you know that.
It's a good idea. What proposed was for the public spaces, where we have the public spaces. But the issue we are facing in Santa Clara is not more of a public spaces. We can improve our public spaces by implementing some of these things, like public park, public gathering places. But the problem we are facing is more of the bigger development, private spaces.
That's right.
So the last I was to ask that question. I noted that.
Ask it now.
Then Kirk asked that question.
Oh, good.
So
good.
what can be done in Santa Clara context about the private developments happening? So that's how,
and all of the community uproar that's happened even just in the last 2 months about those private spaces that are not thinking about community but thinking about profit, personal profit, which they're entitled to as a private developer. They're entitled to it.
They're very much entitled to, but how they can make it synergetically
beneficial to
so
the
that
city. Yeah.
it's a win-win situation for public, residents,
totally agree,
and the developers.
Totally
so
agree.
they have to change their plans. They should not be money only. Yeah, they have to make money.
Sure.
But
there's nothing wrong with making money.
There's a component of quality of life of residents, which has to be taken into account.
Absolutely.
So that's my biggest point.
Amen.
Like this placemaking should be a separate topic for our developers. How they can improve those upcoming developments.
And you know what I really liked about his talk about the placemaking, which when I was chatting with him before, and I got him on live stream saying this. He was saying that the number one step in any placemaking is to acknowledge that the community are the experts.
Yes.
Not him, not a developer, not even our planning staff. It's the community. I mean, the planning staff, they become a part of the community over time, but the neighborhoods, the actual people within the community are the experts.
Who makes the city?
Yeah.
The community makes the city.
Exactly.
Who is in the majority of the living space in the city?
And who's gonna
community.
occupy those spaces? The community. Exactly.
Ultimately,
totally
it's the
agree.
community and their quality of life which matters.
Totally agree. Steve, you wanted to say something.
Well, what I think what we need to do is we need to put out the carrot for developers. If you give us a public plaza, a more walkable development, we will be more conducive to some of the things that you need to make a profit. Developers are looking to make a profit, and the community wants things that engage them. We want entertainment, we want recreation. What we've seen so far along the El Camino has been housing for the most part, which everybody knows we need housing, but we're not getting...
Yeah, not everybody agrees with you on that, but yes. Yeah.
But we're not getting the public benefit.
Yeah, that's, I think, the bigger issue. Yeah.
And if we got public benefit from some of these developments, I think people would be more accepting to the housing as a component to get the public plaza and an area that we can have public events.
I think the way I see it is I see that a lot of developers, of course, profit is a motivation. There's nothing wrong with it. I sincerely believe
it's a capitalistic society.
It's not even. Yes, it's a capitalistic society. But if a developer can be profitable, then they're going to come back and do something else. So, but let's make sure that they do the right thing. But the objective that we typically see, which is I think is the wrong objective. The objective is housing, 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 housing. Right? When the objective should be
maximize profits, basically.
Well, I mean, you can maximize profit even if it's not just housing. But I'm saying that the focus has been, the objective been just housing, housing, housing. But I think the objective should be how do we make a great place where housing is one component of many.
How we integrate the different components, the business,
housing,
the resident,
housing can
the
no
kids.
longer be the objective. It should be a means to the objective of
It should be a component, but not the whole project.
Yeah.
And I think most people are in agreement with that because Raj and I, we get a lot of emails and letters, and people aren't necessarily against housing, but they're not seeing the community benefit.
Yep,
and I understand. I'm feeling the frustration because when I started 4 years ago, we were promised if we would increase density, we would get more vibrant retail, we would get more community benefits. And when I say community benefits, it's not just revenue for the city coffers, but it's activities and benefits.
I'm more interested in benefits to the community that is not like money related, but it's like people love, like it's just a quality of life. It's a quality of life. It's more important than the money.
The question is, it's the inappropriate placing, inappropriate density, inappropriate traffic issues. That's what the problem is. How we can mitigate those things. High density is okay, but at an appropriate
in the right
place.
Yeah.
Like
and again, it shouldn't be the objective. It should be a means to a bigger objective. Like when you look at Rivermark, I mean the whole development of Rivermark, it's higher density than the old other single family. But it's a place that people love to come. It's a kind of like it's a community. It's
that becomes a walkable
and the
space.
quality of life for people who live in Rivermark area. They love it. They love it. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Now let me ask you that.
Oh my God! Somebody's gonna interview me now. Here we go.
Where do you take your family when you want to go out and feel engaged? Because that has been the real shortcoming of our developments so far along the El Camino. We don't have some place that we go and feel engaged.
I mean, the answer to that is there hasn't been a place where, maybe aside from Farmers Market, right, which is close to my house, but it's also a really nice place to go to because you have the music, the food, the place to sit and hang out. My kids can run around and play around the fountain. But other than that, it's really been at my house and my friends' houses. Like my house and my friends' homes we've created them into these places because to fill that void. It doesn't exist otherwise for us. And so our homes have become these places, but it's not a public space. That's the difference. It's not a public space.
See what's happening to the Target complex.
Yeah.
If we look at this placemaking, if we had on the Target complex in
The
the middle of that
understanding,
zone,
exactly. Instead of a parking
something
lot.
like this,
Instead of a parking yeah.
lot, it would have been such a nice place.
Yeah.
There's so much housing.
And people are already going there, but people are already going there, but they can now stay there.
They
can
cannot
stay
do
there.
socialization
Yeah.
there.
There's no socialization.
They're just going there to shop around,
Conduct business
each other,
and leave.
get into the car, come
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
But if we get middle of that area instead of parking lot,
Totally agree.
walkable space, people go and have relax over
Totally
there,
agree.
come back and socialize. Our community engagement will be much higher sitting
absolutely.
across those places.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
And the things that we need to make a community placemaking
Go ahead, guys.
we need quality food that you go to because of the food. Craft beer has been a placemaking source of attraction for many communities where people go to hang out with friends. So what we need is to get some of these into the retail that we're going to have at these newer redevelopments. Because if we don't have,
they're a whole different kind of. There's so many craft breweries is one thing, but I mean there's a whole lot of. I mean, what really blows my mind is that, and you guys know this better than most people, is that no restaurant can do live music in Santa Clara.
I know.
No restaurant can do live music in Santa Clara, and that's like one of the things that I love most about going to the farmers market is going and watching the performers perform. I mean, it just blows my mind.
Actually, that's what he was saying. The rules which have been made for 60, 70 years, we have to play with those and let's see what we can do.
I think we need to start
How
breaking
we
the
can
rules.
tweak those.
I know you guys can't say that, but I'll say it.
See,
we got to start breaking those rules.
When he said no traffic lights, that's what the breaking rule.
Yeah.
That's what's happening in countries back home in India and other places. You have a square, everybody
just goes. Everybody
like
goes.
that,
I know.
So that's what
I know.
And
totally agree.
that creates more cohesive, community oriented.
He was saying the thing about eye contact while on the road. Like when you go, I've been to so many countries around the world, and like you said, like in India, in Egypt, in China, and it's like where traffic is just a disaster. So I mean, I don't want to mimic, I don't want to replicate that, but you get that eye contact because the traffic lights and the painted lines on the street mean nothing if they're even there to begin with. Anyways, that was a lot of
I just want to say one more
Thank
thing.
you.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Good to see you, man. Good to see you.
I'm going to give credit to Suds because Suds has brought up the fact that we should have music at some of these restaurants to be more engaging. And I would also say dance as well.
Sure.
I know Santana Row's done several dance events. And whatever we can do to engage the community.
Heterogeneous environment, right?
Things. These restaurants should have, a stage with a mic and a chair where you can get a performer, but then you can have some whatever, dancing or performances or
sometimes
some side of
community is the performance.
Exactly.
See the space between the Chipotle and city center, Chipotle and Mod Pizza, that square had it not a parking space
between Habit and Panera, that seating area,
that sitting area, and
where the fountain is, that could have been like a little amphitheater, like a mini amphitheater.
Much bigger. That parking space, you would have done that as something like placemaking. So good. Like so many people can walk to that place.
Yeah.
Across Scott, across Harrison.
But if you get anybody that wants to send a message to any of us, we'd be happy to look at it.
Just say it.
If you want to send us your suggestions...
Who's us? When you say us, who are you talking about?
Santa Clara community, that would be ideas for placemaking, send it to the Planning Commission.
The Planning Commission, that's
We'd
what he
love
says
to hear your ideas.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks, guys. Thanks.
Thank you.
Right. All right, what else? Who else is here? I think a lot of people left already, but... okay, well, I hope you guys like these like impromptu chats and conversations with other people standing around. I think that's it. A lot of people left already. There's still some chats and conversations. Fred, thank you so much. I'm still live streaming. Any final closing thoughts for people watching still?
It's a great community. A lot's going to happen here, and you all are going to make it happen.
All right, we'll see you tomorrow morning. Not you. We're going to see everybody else tomorrow morning. Well, thank you again, Fred. All right, guys. Well, anyways, I'm going to end the live stream. People wrapping up, walking around, walking out. And like I said, or like you've heard like a dozen times tonight, tomorrow at 9 o'clock at the Senior Center on Fremont Street, Santa Clara Senior Center. Anyways, I'll see you guys there tomorrow. I will do my best to live stream it, and Catherine, so you asked that question. And I think the city will live stream it as well, but certainly I'll be there. So I'll see you guys there tomorrow in person or on the live stream. So thanks again, and if you have questions and want to engage on the live stream, ask questions like I did today. I asked them on your behalf, but I don't know how the workshop is going to be tomorrow, how interactive it's going to be, so I don't know again how effective a live stream will be, but I'll be there anyways, and we'll see how, we'll play it by ear as it happens. So anyways, I hope everybody has a good night and a great weekend. If I don't see you guys tomorrow, and as always, peace out, everybody.